topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good morning, everybody in Atlanta. I am so sorry this is a live show, and sometimes there's technical issues like we're having this morning, but hey, we're going to work through it. We've got our wonderful, wonderful guest, Dr. Eldred Taylor. He's with the Taylor Medical Group. They specialize in wellness and aesthetic therapies. We're talking about weight loss today, and I just want to welcome and apologize to Dr. Taylor. Good morning, Dr. Taylor.
Hey, good morning. Hey, sometimes it's just those things happen, so I understand.
You know, I see it on national television where they freeze up. But anyway, I want to get right to the show because there's so many people that are listening because we're talking about medical weight loss, not some magic pill. And just a brief bio on Dr. Taylor. You didn't start off you started off as an OBGYN physician. Yeah,
that's right. I went to medical school here in Atlanta at Emory and did a residency at Emory University Hospitals in Grady, and did OBGYN for about 15 years. And I got interested in bioidentical or natural hormones, basically because my wife started having hormone issues. And my wife, who is a family practice doc and psychiatrist, or at least she was, we kind of re-educated ourselves over 4 or 5 years after my daughter was born. My wife stopped working, and we reinvented ourselves and started really looking at how we could make ourselves healthier. And then we decided to share that with our patients. You will find that, most doctors are some of the most unhealthy people they are. And we're supposed to be promoting health, and we're not practicing what we may be preaching. So that's kind of how I got into functional medicine. And if you're going to talk about weight loss, the better your body is functioning, the more likely you're going to be able to get to and maintain a reasonable weight.
Well, I know I want to start off with, because everybody hears hormone replacement, bioidentical hormone replacement. What is hormone replacement?
Okay, well, we can just kind of dissect the word. Bio means your biology, and identical means identical to what your body is making. When I was practicing OBGYN, we didn't use bioidentical hormones. We used birth control pills that had deviations of progesterone called progestins in it, and it would have some estradiol in it, which is a bioidentical hormone, but the main hormone was a progestin, and those cause problems. And then for older patients, we gave them Premarin, which is horse urine, pregnant mare urine, and we gave them something called Provera, which again is not identical to the body. And it's, I try to say it's kind of like if you put Toyota parts in a Mercedes Benz. It may be able to turn on, the motor may run, but it's not going to run like a Mercedes if you put Toyota parts in it. And that's kind of how the body works. If you put parts in it, or you put substances in it that weren't in the original design, you may be able to function, but you're not going to function at your highest level. So bioidentical hormone replacement is replacing those hormones with what your biology originated. originate in your biology. And the reason why you do that is because hormones begin to fade or become unbalanced as we age and based on our environment. We're exposed to hormones, which throws our hormones out of balance. A lot of the chemicals that we're exposed to, pesticides, they are what we call hormone disruptors. That's really how they kill the pesticides. How they kill the pests because what they do is they disrupt their reproductive biology so that they can't reproduce. Well, some of those chemicals do the same thing in us. So all of these disrupt our hormone and hormone balance. And hormone balance is essential in weight loss or maintaining a weight. There are actually some chemicals called obesogens, which means they promote obesity. And they're in a lot of the meats that we eat, a lot of even the fruits and vegetables, because they're sprayed with pesticides. The pesticides are in the ground. Even if you don't spray them, those pesticides stay in the ground and they're absorbed in the foods that we eat.
Why is it that medical schools don't teach this?
Because medical schools are focused on disease. They are interested in what happens at the end. You know how you go to the doctor and they check you and they say, okay, come back next year. And then they check some more and they say, come back next year, check some more and they come back next year. Right. And then all of a sudden, wow, you have diabetes. Oh, you have cancer. Oh, it didn't happen the day before you went to the doctor. It was brewing the whole time, but they kept telling you to go home. If you were overweight or whatever, even if not, disease does not happen usually overnight. It's a culmination of a lot of things that are going on. And that's why in functional medicine, what I do, we are looking not at the end result, waiting until you get to the disease state, but we're trying to identify dysfunction early on. And if you can identify dysfunction early on, it's a lot easier to correct it than you wait. And then if you wait until you have a disease where you're going to have surgery or you're going to be on medication for the rest of your life. And a lot of times that medication for the rest of your life statement is not true. There are usually ways to reverse most diseases. That includes diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease. There's a way to reverse it. And, it's easier to go in reverse if you haven't gone too far in the wrong direction. You got to think, if you go a mile in the wrong direction, to get where you want to go, you actually have to go 2 miles. You have to backtrack the mile that you went in the wrong direction. Then you have to actually go that mile. So if you're, 20 miles down the road in a disease process, it's harder to get back to health. If you're 2 miles down the road in a disease process, it's easier to get back to health. So we try and identify things when it's 2 miles down the road and not when it's 25 miles down the road.
Why is it that some people think that hormone replacement's dangerous?
Well, I will tell you, here's the number one reason why hormone replacement can be dangerous and is dangerous. It can be and is dangerous. If hormones are too high or if hormones are too low, they can cause a problem. Okay. Now, how do you tell if they're too high or too low? Is you don't look at hormone levels in the blood. Now, you can look at thyroid in the blood because it is actually a water-soluble hormone. But things like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, you cannot measure them accurately in the blood. And what happens is that these hormones concentrate in the tissue. They don't stay in the blood. They go out of the blood into the tissue. And that's where that's where good things happen. And that's where also bad things can happen. So if you're going to take hormone replacement, you need to make sure that you're being monitored correctly, because hormones, if they are too high, like estrogen, yes, no doubt about it, estrogen can cause endometrial cancer, it can cause breast cancer. If it is too high and is not balanced correctly with the hormone progesterone. Testosterone is great, it builds muscle, it does all these kind of good things, but it can also cause hair loss, it can also cause problems with acne and skin, it can cause problems with your heart. whether it's too high or too low. That's the weird thing about hormones. Some people think, oh, this hormone does all these good things for me. The more I take, the better it's going to be. Hormones need to be in a certain range, okay? They're in this range, and if they're balanced appropriately, they are wonderful. If they're outside of that range up here or down here, then it can definitely be a problem. So it is correct. Hormone replacement can be dangerous. Almost anything in excess can be dangerous. You can,
Yes.
is water dangerous? Well, yeah, if you drink too much of it, or too much comes into your house, it can be dangerous.
Yes.
If you don't have enough water, that can be dangerous also. So anything in excess or in scarcity can be dangerous.
There's so many people, well, there's so many people that have no idea what their hormone levels are, but they're out there taking supplements without even finding out what the problem is. Now, you do the saliva test. Now, why do you like the saliva test over the blood test?
Well, okay, so I told you I went to Emory University and did an OBGYN residency. In those 4 years, we never drew blood levels of hormones. We never did it. Never thought about it, never talked about it. What we did was, if you were young and you came in with a young woman and you came in with any kind of hormone problem, if you weren't in menopause, we gave you birth control pills. If you had mood issues, we gave you an antidepressant. If you were older, we gave you Premarin. If you didn't have a uterus, we gave you Premarin Provera if you did have a uterus. We never measured hormones ever. The only reason why we tell you to stop taking hormones is that if you were having postmenopausal bleeding or if you had breast cancer. So again, we were told you wait till they have something that looks like a disease, and then you tell them to stop. So why do I like saliva testing? Because saliva testing helps me to accurately monitor patients' hormones prior to a disease happening. I mean, we can do it when they're 1 mile down the road or half a mile down the road, and not at the point where they're having disease. So I went from never measuring hormones to now I always measure hormones. And what I'm now on a crusade is that bioidentical hormones are becoming more acceptable. More doctors are jumping on the bandwagon, and they're using blood testing to decide who needs hormones and how to manage their hormones. And I don't know any other way to say it except that that's the wrong way to do it. And it can be detrimental, because when you give hormones, again, they don't stay in the blood. So if you're looking to see if it's too much or too little just by looking in the blood, by the time the blood level goes up, the tissue is already saturated. The tissue is already bombarded with all these hormones. And two things will happen. Either it will cause problems down the road with testosterone or cortisol or whatever, or your body will become desensitized to it. It's almost like an addiction where you have to take more and more to get the same result. And so if the body becomes desensitized, you have to take more estrogen and more progesterone, and just trying to get that feeling that you had when you started the hormone. So it's not a matter of liking saliva testing. To me, that is the proper way to monitor a person to see if they need hormones, and to continue to monitor them to see if they need to continue the hormones or if you need to make any adjustments.
It's amazing, Dr. Taylor, the things that you're teaching us is almost so common sense. I mean, either your hormones are too high or too low, but how do you know that unless you test them?
Yeah.
There's so many things that you do in your practice that make so much sense that it's kind of sad, because there's people out there that are just going through the motions, and they're not even the right motions, and they're going to end up with frustration.
Yeah. And, that's the least of their problems, if they just end up with frustration. a lot of them can end up with other issues. And, women are deathly afraid of breast cancer. And that's what a lot of the fear about hormone replacement is. And they know, they'll tell me stories all the time. Yeah, my mother took Premarin and, 10 years later, she died of breast cancer. So they're deathly afraid of it. So, but if I can bring them numbers that show, hey, here's what's going on. This is why you feel this way. We're going to get these numbers in the right order. Or we're going to come back and I'm going to make sure that they stay in that correct order. They're fine. They understand what the process is. They know what what our goals are and where we're trying to go, and they're fine, so that they don't have to. Because a lot of these women will say, "I'll just suffer through it. I'll go through the not being able to sleep. I'll go through the hot flashes because my mother had breast cancer." And I try and tell them that that's because they were unmonitored. They were taking things that their body was not supposed to be exposed to. That is the reason. I mean, that's one of the reasons. I won't say that's that's the only cause of cancer, but you don't want to contribute. You want to be able to do what you can do to prevent it. And I will tell you that women they've been bombarded with this idea that when I go through menopause, I'm estrogen deficient. That more than likely is not true, because after menopause, fat tissue can make estrogen. And we're a country of obesity. And so a lot of those women are already making estrogen. What does go away is progesterone. So progesterone promotes gestation in a young woman, and it slows down the growth caused by estrogen in every woman, and even in men. So I would tell you 80% of my patients are just on progesterone. So they don't even have to worry about taking estrogen. And that takes away all of their symptoms of menopause. It helps them with their weight. It helps them with their mood. It helps them with their sleep. So, this myth that menopausal women are estrogen deficient is truly a myth. Some of them are, and you're only going to know that if you test them. So that's why the testing is so important. You can't put everybody in one particular category and treat them all 100% the same.
That makes sense. Dr. Taylor, give everybody your phone number and your website, because your website's actually the best way to make an appointment with you in Atlanta. But give everybody your phone number and website address.
Okay, my phone number is 678-443-4000, and my website is taylormedicalgroup.net. So make sure it's .net, not .com. If you do put .com, you'll have some lawyer office in Illinois, I think. So taylormedicalgroup.net. And that's the best way. And we have a lot of health information on our website. If you go to our website, go to Health News, talks about saliva testing, menopause, weight loss, all the things that we do in our office. And every page has a widget on there that's for Book Now, and you can book an appointment online very easily.
Dr. Taylor, we love having you on. Dr. Taylor's going to be with us again next month. He's with us twice every month. We will be letting you know through our promotion when his next show is. We're on with you every Wednesday from 10 to 11. Dr. Taylor, thank you so much.
All right.
We will see you again.
Okay. All right. All right. Take care.
Taylor. Thank you, Dr. Taylor. We're going to be talking about in the future not only weight loss, but we're going to be talking about ED, also supplements that you can take from this. So we'll be back again with Dr. Taylor again. We are going to go to a break, and when we come back, we have our Sunbelt Business Broker Show, our interview with them. Thank you, Dr. Taylor.
All right. Thank you. All right. Look forward to seeing you next month.
Yes.
K. Bender Rembaum is a full-service community association law firm dedicated to the representation of community associations throughout Florida. On kbrlegal.com, you can learn more about their offices in Pompano Beach, Palm Beach Gardens, Orlando, Tampa, as well as throughout Miami-Dade by appointment. Several K. Bender Rembaum attorneys are board-certified specialists in condominium and plan development law and assist clients with all matters of community association legal issues while keeping them up to date on new developments that affect their associations. K. Bender Rembaum is also a well-known provider of free legal education for managers and board members. Contact K. Bender Rembaum today by calling 800-974-0680. That's 800-974-0680 to reach any of their locations. You can also visit them online at kbrlegal.com or write to them at info@kbrlegal.com.
And we are back with the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV with your hosts, Steve-O, Sophia, and their expert guests.
And we are back. This is the Ask the Expert show with you every Wednesday from 10 to 11. Our next guest does the most amazing work when it comes to selling a business. We want to welcome Doreen Morgan. She's head of the Sunbelt Business Brokers of Atlanta. Good morning. We have Doreen there. This is we're waiting on Doreen Morgan, who's head of Sunbelt Business Brokers. Oh, there she is. There's Doreen.
Hi,
Good morning,
how are you?
Doreen. We're doing well. I just introduced you. You are the president of the Atlanta division for Sunbelt Business Brokers, and we are so happy to have you on our show because, I mean, God, what a load off someone's mind to have a business broker to handle everything for them and not have to worry about employees hearing something about maybe the business being up for sale. You do all the due diligence. It's turnkey with Sunbelt Business Brokers. Tell us a little bit about Sunbelt Business Brokers of Atlanta.
Okay, well, we have been here for 25 years. We're part of Sunbelt Network, which is 250 offices across 10 countries. My firm specializes in sell side. We don't do buy side representation. We only represent sellers of Main Street and lower middle market companies. So Main Street and lower middle market companies are going to be, Main Street is exactly what it sounds like. They're usually going to be any kind of business you would see on Main Street, from hardware stores and restaurants and hair salons through lower middle market. We do, probably 50% of the practice is Main Street, and then the other 50% is lower middle market. We do a lot in business services, manufacturing, technology, medical, wholesale distribution, and franchises.
Well, speaking of franchises, that's what we're going to be talking about today. Selling a franchise, resale, and since you started your show, I bet you we've received maybe 5 or 6 people just wanting to know, should they even get into franchise? And I know you have a lot to say about that, but when it comes to how do you value a franchise when it comes to resale?
Typically, franchises will sell for more than an independent company. So if it's an independent concept, say, for example, moving and storage. If it's an independent moving and storage company, those will trade for a 2.5 multiple. If it is a franchise concept like a 2 minute in a truck or college hunk, something like that, they'll trade for 3.25 to 3.5 times multiple. So you usually get a
Wow.
bit of a premium with a franchise. A independent hardware store will trade for less than an Ace Hardware or Do It Best will.
I guess, and tell me if I'm right or wrong on this, when it comes to a franchise, I guess the positive thing is you shouldn't have to make any mistakes because the franchises should have already made those mistakes and know how to get around them. So you really kind of start off ahead of the game. Is that right when it comes to a franchise? Oh, looks like we lost Doreen. Hopefully she'll come back. We're talking about franchises today, and we've been having some technical difficulties today, and we're going to see if we can get Doreen back on. This is what happens when you have a live show like we do. Many of the shows out there are tape shows, and they don't have these problems. But when we have a show like this, that's what happens.
Are you there?
Are we still on? There we go.
Oh, sorry
Yeah.
about
You
that.
hear it?
That's what happened. I don't see you anymore. I couldn't hear you, so.
It's okay. Can you hear us? Okay. So I was asking you when it comes to a franchise, usually most of the mistakes have already been made. So you should not have to worry as to when you're first starting a business and you make a lot of mistakes. Those mistakes have probably been conquered when you buy a franchise. Is that correct?
Right.
So what kind of people are buying franchises now?
Usually it's going to be, depending on the type of franchise and the size, it's usually going to be people coming out of corporate America that have always wanted to own their own business, but aren't necessarily, don't necessarily want to start a business from scratch, from the ground up. People who want to be in business for themselves, but not by themselves. And then, we're seeing a lot of private equity activity in the franchise space. Private equity groups are interested in, rolling up multi-location, multi-unit franchisees. And then also they're buying franchisors as well.
Are there a lot of guidelines, rules, regulations when it comes to a franchise? That I know some franchises, you actually, to get into them, you actually have to work at the franchise for a year or two. Is that true?
No. There are, a couple out there, maybe, Chick-fil-A is one. I think you have to be there for 5 years, but that's really highly unusual.
So can the sellers sell a franchise business to anyone they want to?
Usually, and that's one of the things that we help existing franchisees do is, when we take the company to market, we're qualifying the buyers before they even ever know that it's your business for sale. And so, one of the things we look for is we're going to make sure that when they sign that non-disclosure agreement and send us their financials and resume, we're going to make sure that they meet the franchisor's net worth requirement, and then also they have to have a transferable skill set. So we look for that in their resumes. So we are qualifying the buyers, before we even send them information on the franchisee's business that's for sale. But then, the franchisor does have right of first refusal, but that is, they don't have to exercise that right until after, we have an offer. So then the franchisor can decide if they want to meet or exceed that offer. But it is pretty rare that a franchise concept will exercise their right of first refusal. But that is something that can be really confusing to existing franchisees when they go to sell. Oftentimes they think they've got to take it to the franchisor first to see if they want to buy it. And that's not always, that's not the case. Once there's an offer on the table, they can exercise their right to buy it then.
I've wondered, what does a potential buyer expect in regards to training and transitioning if they buy a franchise?
The franchisor is going to require that the new franchisee goes through their existing training program. And then the seller of the franchise location will still transition the business for, depending on what kind of business it is, for between 4 weeks, 8 weeks. But in addition to that, the franchisor is going to require the new owner to go through their formal training process.
I got to kind of put this in because, Doreen, you and your staff do so much behind the scenes work, and you don't even, there's no money exchange when someone retains your services. It's all based on performance. So you really got to deliver.
Yeah, we do. We're pretty unique in that regard. Most firms charge upfront retainer fees, and they usually range anywhere from between $7,000 up to $45,000. And we don't charge any upfront fees at all. We sit on the same side of the table with you until the company sells. But we close, 90% of the companies that we take to market. And if it doesn't close, it's usually something material happened in the business through the process. But yeah, no, we most business owners have to fund. They aren't asking their customers or clients for money up front, and we don't either.
I don't even think people realize everything you do from the time a new client signs an agreement with you. Tell people, because there's so much due diligence that's done, but tell people what you do once they've signed with you.
Well, the first thing we do before anyone even signs with us is we do an opinion of value, and we don't charge any money for that either. That's just, that's the starting point. You really can't know if you're ready to sell your company until you know what it's going to drive on the open market. And we can't know if we are able to help you until we get that done. So that's the first thing we do, is an opinion of value. When we enter into an engagement agreement, we are putting together target lists. We use extensive databases to find strategic buyers in the industry. We really look at who would benefit the most from owning your business. And we can see, what kind of acquisitions are being made in the space, who's making those acquisitions. So we put together a target list, and then we have an exhaustive database of financial buyers, private equity firms, family offices, holding companies. So, we cast a very, very broad net when we take your company to market. Our website is highly trafficked. We've been, here in Atlanta for 25 years. We're probably the largest firm in the southeastern United States. We're part of Sunbelt Network, which is, again, on that site, any day we'll have between 3,000 and 4,000 businesses listed for sale. And it's there, and then on public sites. So when we take a company to market, it's going to, between 4,000 and 8,000 prospective buyers right out of the gate. So typically from launch date to close dates between 5 and 7 months. We manage the entire process. We put together all the marketing materials. We write the pitch book, and then on a Main Street transaction, we're also working with our business lenders to get a term sheet in place. So by the time we identify the buyer, we've got a bank identified as well that's wants to do the loan. We manage the entire due diligence process, coordinate with the attorneys, the CPAs, appraisers. We handle everything right through the closing table.
What type of franchises seem to be selling the best?
Anything business service related is always they're always popular franchise concepts. And then, hardware stores are always popular franchise concepts. Strong restaurant brands are popular, but it kind of follows the Main Street business lines. The dirtier the business, the more popular it is, the more, the more successful it can be. So, anything that requires physical work or, auto repair shops are strong franchise brands typically too.
It's funny you said that about hardware. There's two huge companies that I've always wondered how smaller mom and pop hardware stores compete with, but I see them opening up everywhere. So I guess it must be a great business to go into.
Yeah, it is. People like them. I mean, they're recession proof. They're, they're user friendly. People they're always going to be improving and repairing homes and improving and fixing up landscapes. So, good times and in bad, hardware stores typically do well through good times. And then through recessionary times, they do really well as well, because instead of moving to a new home, people tend to renovate more.
I always wondered what you do, because you value businesses for what they're worth, which to me sometimes is kind of tough to do, because someone's put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into their business, and they sometimes find out it's not worth as much as they thought. And that was my case about 15 years ago. I thought my business was worth a lot more. And when I finally did the right thing and hired a business broker and found out that it wasn't worth as much as I thought, that was the main reason why it wasn't selling. I just had it priced out too high. And, what you do is you actually go in and you do an evaluation of the business.
Right. Yeah, that's the first step in our process.
Is it tough when people think their business is worth a lot more?
Well, yeah, but we just show them, why it's worth what it's worth. And I think, we don't see that as much, because, people are a little more educated about what their companies are worth now. But we love to get in front of people, 2 or 3 years before they're ready to sell, just to do that initial opinion and value, because you don't want to wait until you are absolutely ready to retire, and you know that it's going to take between 5 and 7 months to sell your business. So you wait until 8 months before you're ready to retire to look at doing an opinion and value, because if it's not going to help you reach the goal, whether it's have enough to move into another type of business or retire, it's better to know that up front. So, we do a lot of that. We'll meet with people, 2 or 3 years before they're ready to exit out. And then that gives them a good understanding of where they are versus maybe where they want to be, and then they can work towards towards meeting that goal of where they need to be.
When you work with your clients on structure of the deal, because sometimes some businesses, they want to keep their employees, make sure their employees are retained. Is there a lot of negotiation that goes on to make the deal finally happen?
Yeah, there's a lot more than just the price. It depends again on the type of company it is, but if there are patents involved, there's negotiation on patent agreements. There's negotiation around the transition period. The non-compete agreement can be tricky depending on the type of business. Sometimes, a geography, if it's a technology company, sometimes the buyer will want the entire United States or entire world. And so those kinds of things need to be negotiated for sure. So yeah, a lot more than just the purchase price.
And do you handle the negotiations, or does the client?
No, we handle all of that. All of that is done through us. There's no direct negotiations directly with the clients.
Again, I want to reiterate that 15 years ago, when I was living in Texas and I was selling my business, a year went by, Doreen, a whole year, and nothing. And sometimes I get a lot of tire kickers. That's what I got. When I finally hired a business broker, it was such a difference in night and day. It made my life so much easier. And the fee that I finally paid them was so well worth it. You all you do so much for your client, and it almost is hands-free. I mean, you do literally all the work.
Yeah, I mean, one thing is, I kind of tell people to relate it to, if you're driving down the street and you see a house for sale by owner, what's the first thing you think, right? It's a steal. Or they're desperate to sell. So those, that's the first thing. But the second thing is, for sale by owner, is all confidentiality is out the window, because you're the one answering the phone, so they know it's your company for sale. And then it's difficult to get fair market value for your company unless you actually go to the open market. So being with a reputable firm really adds to the value. It protects confidentiality, and those are the big things. But it allows you to keep running your business, because it is very time consuming, and if you take your foot off the gas and it stretches out, that's kind of what people like to do. They like to stretch out the closing, because if the owner is not as focused on the business, and then sales drop a little bit, then it allows the opportunity for the buyer to come back in the 11th hour and say, oh, well, now we can't pay as much. And they've drug you around through a due diligence process for 6 months or a year. So we eliminate all of that.
Doreen, give everybody your phone number, how they can reach you and your website.
It's 770-936-9099, and it's Sunbelt Atlanta is spelled out, .com.
Okay, we love having you on with us every week. You come on around 10:25 on our new time now, and we love having you on, especially with our new format and all the new business owners we have out there. Doreen, thank you so much, and you're going to be back with us again next week at 10:25, and we'll be talking about other areas of business. Thank you, Doreen.
Thank you. Thanks.
We'll see you all next week with more Ask the Experts, sponsored by Sunbelt Business Brokers of Atlanta. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.